The brand new HBO Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone TV adaptation is finally here, and there are so many tiny details that we need to discuss. Here are 13 details you may not have noticed in the new trailer. Before we dive into it, I know there are so many more things than I have shown. I've actually got double-sided pages with so many notes, and I'm going to be making a more in-depth video on the entire trailer as a whole. And there's so many video ideas that I've got since going through doing a deep dive for this trailer. However, in this video, we're going to go over 13 details and possibly a bonus detail or two that I found when I was looking. I've even gone through my copy of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, found quotes that directly relate between the book and what we saw on screen. I've labelled them with the chapter, the page number, and whereabouts they are on the page. So I'm going to be showing you not only the details you've missed, but reading you the corresponding part of the book that it links to, if it does. Not all of the details that I'm going to show you link to something in the book. It might just be a little something that I noticed along the way. But there are a fair few, as you can probably see from my little scrap pieces of paper at the top. Anyway, let's get into the first one. One of the most exciting details I noticed was the Nimbus 2000 box. The box itself has incredible details such as wording that says "swift as a snitch" and drawings of Quidditch hoops, and the colour theming is so aesthetic. In the books, Harry is told specifically not to open it at the table and instead to open it away from prying eyes. And it looks like that's what's about to happen here with Ron beside him. This moment comes from chapter 10, pages 121 and 122. It reads, "As the owls flooded into the Great Hall as usual, everybody's attention was caught at once by a long, thin package carried by 6 large screech owls. Harry was just as interested as everyone else to see what was in this large parcel and was amazed when the owls soared down and dropped it right in front of him, knocking his bacon to the floor. They hardly fluttered out of the way when another owl dropped a letter on top of the parcel. Harry ripped open the letter first, which was lucky because it said, 'Do not open the parcel at the table. It contains your new Nimbus 2000, but I don't want everybody knowing you've got a broomstick or they'll all want one. Oliver Wood will meet you tonight on the Quidditch pitch at 7 o'clock for your first training session. Professor M. McGonagall.' Harry had difficulty hiding his glee as he handed the note to Ron to read. 'A Nimbus 2000? Ron moaned enviously. 'I've never even touched one.' They left the hall quickly, wanting to unwrap the broomstick in private before their first lesson. And that's where I'm going to leave it, because no, it doesn't actually say them opening it. However, it does have the bit about McGonagall telling him not to open it in front of everybody else. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing there. Harry and Ron have gone off to open it somewhere in private. The second detail I wanted to talk to you about was the Herbology scene. In the Herbology scene, we spot Hermione, Neville and Parvati and the rest of the class all wearing yellow. This could suggest a more standardised class colours, especially since their teacher is the head of the Hufflepuff house, Professor Sprout. It's a small but interesting world-building detail that I just love to see, and I can't wait to find out more about it. If you look closely at the Hogwarts Express, you'll notice the train number is 5977, which is different from the train number in the films, where it was 5972. This is just a small change, but it's something that I spotted, and I'd be really interested to know exactly why they've made this change. Number 4, the first years walk into the Black Lake. We see the first years walking through a forest with Hagrid carrying lanterns. This looks like the moment from chapter 6, page 83, where the students are being led across the Black Lake to get into the boat. Slipping and stumbling, they followed Hagrid down what seemed to be a steep, narrow path. It was so dark either side of them that Harry thought there must be thick trees there. So I think that's where they're going. I think they're being led over to the Black Lake so that they can get the boats over to Hogwarts. I could be wrong, but that feels like that's perfectly described. They've all got lanterns and Hagrid is leading them. Another book-accurate detail is Hagrid knocks 3 times on the castle doors. This comes from chapter 6, page 84, and it is the very last line, which reads, "Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times on the castle door." It's great to see little moments like these being added into the series and into the trailer because it brings it to life even more. Number 6 to 10 are all the first time we, Harry, and the other first-year Hogwarts students get to see Hogwarts. When the students first enter Hogwarts, there are loads of details packed into this small little segment. You can spot Professor McGonagall waiting for them, which lines up with chapter 7, page 85, line 2. The door swung open at once. A tall, black-haired witch in emerald green robes stood there. She had a very stern face, and Harry's first thought was that this was not someone to cross. "The first years, Professor McGonagall," said Hagrid. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." She pulled the door wide. The entrance hall was so big you could have fitted the whole of the Dursleys' house in it. Next thing we see are house flags lining the wall, which I believe to be Gryffindor and Slytherin. This helps to make the castle feel even more alive and immersive. I'd love to know where the Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff flags were, as we didn't see them in this little snippet, but I'm assuming that they are there potentially on another wall. There's also a banner that reads, "Welcome to Hogwarts, first years," which adds to the excitement of the students arriving for the first time and honestly made me so emotional. In at number 9, we can see at the back of the hall, there appears to be 2 Hogwarts banners. At first glance, I thought they were the Ravenclaw flags. However, they are different to the 2 flags we just spoke about. So I'm now wondering if they are general Hogwarts flags. It'd be really nice if they are, if we saw them in all of the different house colours, see them representing all of the house pride. But it would also be interesting to see it with all 4 house colours on it as well, because the one that I can see in this picture is black. I think it's black and blue. I could be wrong, but to me it looks like black and blue here. The final detail we're going to talk about in this specific bit is the add of nature. It seems like they have added things like trees and bushes that are built into the castle itself. This adds a really magical and ancient feel to Hogwarts, making it seem more connected to nature. I'd be really interested to find out why they decided specifically to add nature into Hogwarts. I think it's going to take some getting used to, but I actually quite like it. I don't know, something about that entire just set that's there just really gives me Hogwarts vibes, and I'm honestly living for it. Okay, for number 11, we are going to go to a little snippet where we start to see students staring at Harry, staring at him in awe and disbelief. And this makes perfect sense, because Harry grew up as a legend in their eyes. To the wizarding world, he was the boy who lived. Everybody has heard his story, so seeing him walk in the halls at school with them would probably be very shocking. Meanwhile, Harry does look unsettled, which fits perfectly for his character because he's used to being told he's nothing special. I really like the addition to this because we actually see this in chapter 8 on page 89 at the top, where it says, "There, look!" "Where?" "Next to the tall kid with the red hair." "Wearing the glasses." "Did you see his face?" "Did you see his scar?" Whispers followed Harry from the moment he left the dormitory the next day. People queuing outside classrooms stood on tiptoes to get a look at him, or doubled back to pass him in the corridors again staring. Harry wished they wouldn't, because he was trying to concentrate on finding his way to classes. We can also see why the students would be so shocked and why Harry would feel so out of place in pages 15 to 16 when Professor Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall talk about leaving Harry with the Dursleys and everybody knowing his name. "It's the best place for him," said Dumbledore firmly. "His aunt and uncle will be able to explain everything to him when he's older. I've written him a letter." "A letter?" repeated Professor McGonagall faintly, sitting back down on the wall. "Really, Dumbledore? You think you can explain all this in a letter? These people will never understand him. He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day in the future. There will be books written about Harry. Every child in our world would know his name." "Exactly," said Dumbledore, looking very seriously over the top of his half-moon glasses. "It would be enough to turn any boy's head. Famous before he can walk and talk. Famous for something he won't even remember. Can't you see how much better off he'll be growing up away from all of that until he's ready to take it on?" Professor McGonagall opened her mouth, changed her mind, swallowed, and said, Yes, you're right, of course. But how's the boy getting here, Dumbledore?" And that's where we're going to leave it there. Number 11. There is also a snowball fight that we see Harry and Ron in during this trailer. I think this is the Christmas snowball fight that involves Fred and George Weasley, which means we might be able to see them throwing snowballs at the back of Quirrell's head, which means we're going to be seeing them throw snowballs at the back of Voldemort's head. Yes, I said Voldemort. Apparently we've all been saying it wrong, and I'm trying to train my brain to say Voldemort instead of Voldemort. So I do apologise. I'm really trying to train myself, and that's why you'll hear me say Voldemort instead of Voldemort. But you might hear a mix of the two. However, it seems like they've added more characters into this scene. I believe the actors are for the characters Hannah Abbott and Ernie Macmillan. And I like the idea of seeing Harry interact with different people from different houses and different characters that we wouldn't normally see past the reoccurring characters that he's usually with. To find this in the book, If you go to chapter 12 at the top of page 143, it reads, Christmas was coming. One morning in mid-December, Hogwarts woke to find itself covered in several feet of snow. The lake froze solid and the Weasley twins were punished for bewitching several snowballs so that they followed Quirrell around, bouncing off the back of his turban. That's the bit about Quirrell and the Weasley twins. And then we have also got on page 151, Harry and the Weasleys spent a happy afternoon having a furious snowball fight in the grounds. Then cold, wet and gasping for breath, they returned to the fire in the Gryffindor common room. And finally, if you look closely at what Harry's wearing, he appears to be wearing a green jumper. An emerald green jumper. This could be the one that Molly Weasley knitted for him in the first book. And I think I can see a little bit of silver or grey detail at the top, which even looks like it could be the top of the H. And I know what you might be thinking, but he has a blue jumper in the films. In the books, on page 147, it actually says, Harry tore open the parcel to find a thick hand-knitted sweater in emerald green and a large box of homemade fudge. So it is an emerald green jumper. That was our 13th detail, but we still have 2 details left. When I was going through the order for the things I wanted to talk about, I realised I'd missed out 2 key details that I really wanted to discuss. So the first bonus one is Professor Binns. Did you spot Professor Binns at the front of the classroom teaching a history of magic, whilst lots of the other students were napping? This is a character we haven't yet seen be portrayed on the screen, and I'm so excited to see him being brought to life. This links to chapter 8, page 99, which states at the bottom, easily the most boring lesson was History of Magic, which was the only class taught by a ghost. Professor Binns had been very old indeed when he'd fallen asleep in front of the staff room fire and got up the next morning to teach, leaving his body behind him. Binns droned on and on while they scribbled down names and dates and got Emeric the Evil and Uric the Oddball mixed up. And our actual final detail, which is our bonus detail number 2, is that we get a very small glimpse of Ginny Weasley, who is standing on the platform with Molly as Molly is saying goodbye to Ron. And I believe that she is rubbing dirt off of his nose, which would link to this part of the book, which you can find in chapter 6 on page 72, and it's about halfway down. Harry sat down next to the window where, half hidden, he could watch the red-haired family on the platform and hear what they were saying. Their mother had just taken out her handkerchief. Ron, you've got something on your nose. The youngest boy tried to jerk out of the way, but she grabbed him, beginning to rub the end of his nose. Mom, get off! Has Ickle Ronnie got something on his nose? Said one of the twins. Shut up, said Ron. Where's Percy? Said the mother. He's coming now. And then it also goes on within this. We see a little bit about Ginny, and I'd be really intrigued if we get to see the full platform scene within this series, where it says, Harry heard the little girl's voice. Oh, Mum, can I go on the train and see him? Mum, oh, please. You've already seen him, Ginny, and the poor boy isn't something you goggle at in a zoo, is he, Fred? So we get to see more of Ginny. I think even from just seeing that second on the platform, we are going to get that scene, which I literally cannot wait to be brought to life. So that is the 13, or should I say 15 things that you may have missed within the new HBO Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone trailer. If this trailer is anything to go by, then I think this series is going to be really special. Let me know in the comments what details you spotted. Okay, I'm going to add like another detail in, which I have literally only just thought about. So HBO is an American brand, right? And in America, it was the Sorcerer's Stone. However, they've called it the Philosopher's Stone. So I'm now really intrigued. Have they done that because it's a British thing that they're adapting? I'd really like to know your opinions on this. Why do you think they might have done that? But I'm loving the fact it's gone back to the name of the Philosopher's Stone. For me, that's always been the name. But I know when I've been talking to my American friends, it's not been the name that they've had. And when I've said philosophers, sometimes they forget that I'm talking about the Sorcerer's Stone, and there's been times I forgot they're talking about Sorcerer's Stone when they say sorcerer. So yeah, let me know what you think about that. And I guess that's 16 things you might not have noticed. I have so many more, so let me know if you want an even bigger deep dive into this series. I cannot wait. We're going to be going through this, and as things come out, we'll react and we'll chat and we'll have conversations, and I really want to get some live streams going. So make sure you hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on so you're notified every single time I upload. And if you want to see any more of my videos, please click here. I hope you have a magical day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.